Welcome to Frontline at 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We begin tonight with some breaking news. A Russian military spy ship spotted just 15 miles off the coast of Hawaii. A Coast Guard helicopter and ship immediately responded and have been monitoring Russia's Kryela ship. And also this, speaking of our military, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth making it official that America is done playing defense.
This is a new era of the Department of War that is focused on winning wars, not just perpetually defending, making sure we know exactly what the mission is and that the troops are sent there to succeed and win.
A new era of America on the offense. We'll have more on that in just a minute. Also, will women's sports finally be protected? The Supreme Court has now taken up the case and set a date to hear two transgender athlete cases. The International Olympic Committee also moving closer to a ban on trans, with reports saying it could happen soon. Plus, airport chaos could be coming to an end very soon. The FAA is easing commercial flight restrictions it ordered at 40 U.S. airports during the shutdown from 6% to 3%, effective tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. I'm Lidia Curanaj in for Carl Higbie, and Frontline starts right now. The Department of War announcing Operation Southern Spear, a military mission that marks a turning point, a strategic shift in how we face ongoing threats to our nation. And right now, there is no bigger threat than the poisoning of our young people.
I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country, okay? We're going to kill them, you know? They're going to be like dead.
So far, about 60 narco-terrorists are like dead. Vulnerability became opportunity for far too long under the Democrat rule of Obama and Biden as terrorists exploited open marine channels with a direct line to our shores. To date, the Department of War has carried out 20 strikes on drug trafficking marine vessels. Operation Southern Spear will operate on sea as well as on land, air, with the deployment of 20 drones.
My advice to foreign terrorist organizations: do not get in a boat. I mean, if you're trafficking drugs to poison the American people, and we know you're from a designated terrorist organization, you're a foreign terrorist and a trafficker, we will find you and we will kill you.
Cartels have already been killing Americans by the millions in a war raging inside millions of American homes. I'm sure many of you can feel this. An estimated 48.5 million Americans are battling drug addiction as we speak. About 100,000 of those people die from drug poisonings every single year. Operation Spear's announcement coming just days after the Trump administration deployed its largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, which carries more than 4,000 sailors to Latin American waters. But according to CBS News, the president also now weighing military options for Venezuela in the coming days, with no final decision being made just yet. Venezuela's dictator Nicolas Maduro clearly getting the hint that when you mess around, you find out.
Not war, not war, not war. Just peace, just peace, just peace, forever, forever, forever. Peace forever. No crazy war. No a la guerra loca. No crazy war, no crazy war.
What's really crazy, Maduro, is how he's managed to operate without consequence since he came into power in 2013. And now, according to Reuters, Venezuela is now preparing to mount a guerrilla-style resistance or sow chaos in the event of a U.S. air or ground attack. The Venezuelan government even releasing video of troops there training as they use decades-old Russian-made equipment. The video also showing fighter jets and helicopters while troops secured positions along the shoreline. Amid the rising tensions comes Venezuela's partner in crime, literally and figuratively, China. Reportedly, China now threatening Venezuela throwing them an economic lifeline as the two countries have now made a no-tariff pact. It's now become undeniable that where there's drugs, there always seems to be China. This week, President Trump also banned chemicals used as precursors to manufacture fentanyl that come directly from China and then, of course, delivered by the cartels. Now, of course, the goal of fentanyl is to kill as many Americans as possible.
The FBI has seized 1,900 kilograms of fentanyl so far. That is a 31% increase from the same time period last year. To put it in perspective, that's enough fentanyl to kill 127 million.
Wow, 127 million. The days of allowing drugs to infiltrate our towns, our streets like roaches and rats, it is over. As ICE agents ramp up efforts to take illegals off our streets, protests like this one outside of a Portland ICE facility, which would make exercise guru like Richard Simmons roll in his grave, they continue. I don't know about you, but my money is on ICE and our military, not these folks. But you know what? Oftentimes in war, truth is usually the first casualty, as seen by the Democrat-controlled legacy media.
Just how much latitude does the U.S. have right now to justify its naval buildup and the lethal strikes on alleged drug boats in the Caribbean?
Wolf, I think this policy is a catastrophic blunder.
So you probably saw that the president has blown another ship out of the water, again claiming that these were narco-terrorists and somehow that he has the authority to do this. He does not.
It was an illegal move by the Trump administration. There's a thing called due process in this country, and that needed to have happened.
So they stick up for criminal, illegal aliens, narco-terrorists, but not for the average American. Got it. Remember, in war, there is no substitute for victory. And if you don't go and fight the war will come to you. And folks, it already has. Joining me now to discuss, former CIA covert operations officer and host of the President's Daily Brief podcast, Mike Baker. Also with us, Ron Vitiello, senior advisor for U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mike, I know that you have had a lot of dealings with Latin America, Venezuela. What did you think about Maduro's response there? No loco, no crazy war. I mean, clearly he knows that something is brewing, that he kind of acted with impunity for far too long.
Yeah. I mean, look, he'd have to be a complete moron and gormless not to understand what's happening off his shoreline. But I think, he's also his personnel, those around him in his military at the senior levels, they're actually more important here than Maduro is, because it's that structure that's around him that, in a sense, we're really trying to influence. And one of his senior officers, recently just said the other day, look, we know we wouldn't last a couple of hours in a direct conflict with the U.S. military. So, Maduro's supposed strategy now is to essentially, create a guerrilla type environment. He dispersed his troops throughout the country. They'd be engaged in sabotage and basically essentially trying to create an ungovernable environment. So he's hoping that, along with his pleas for help from the Russians and the Iranians, and to some degree the Chinese, will help deter any movement. But look, I think we also want to be pragmatic about the difficulties here, both in terms of any type of move on the Maduro regime, but also, more importantly, the counter-narcotics operations. I spent a fair amount of time in counter-narcotics operations in the past, and it's very complex. And the reality of it is, yes, we should be engaged in a more aggressive actual war on drugs. We have to understand that, we also need to, and we've never been good at it, we've never dealt with the demand side. And as long as that demand exists, the narco traffickers are going to find ways to adapt.
And speaking of those drugs, Ron, once the drugs hit our shore, go through our border, it's then trafficked from town to town. Governor Gavin Newsom, or we like to call him Governor Hare, seems oblivious to what's really going on, or perhaps he's too busy running for president, which he'll lose. A bombshell report now revealing California issued 17,000 licenses to dangerous foreign truck drivers. What do you think about that?
Well, it's about time, right? This is a situation that, after 4 years of complete chaos at our southwest border, when you had the president and everybody down the line in Homeland Security saying that there was no crisis on the border, here are the real effects, right? 17,000 people in the United States who don't have a right to be here. We're not inspected. We're not properly vetted. They're given driver's license for large trucks to operate on highways all over the United States by the California government. And so these are the kinds of things that we've tolerated. It's not unlike these drug boats. We accepted We tolerated thousands of people coming across the border during a Democratic administration. And now we have a president with a backbone that says, you know what, we're not tolerating this anymore. We're going to hold our partners, our friends, and our allies to account, as well as the enemy in the case of these narco traffickers that are coming from Venezuela. Think about the men and women who've lost loved ones, as you said, that were poisoned. You know, they were taking what they thought was a recreational drug, and it killed them instantly. We have to stop that. Mike's right on the demand side. We need to do more in our schools, in our, in primary education, et cetera. But we've got to take this fight literally to the drug dealers, to the drug transportation outfits, these narco terrorists that are tearing down our culture and our society. And I'm all about it. Let's just keep doing that. We're going to keep investigating. We're still going to prosecute organized crime members. But like we did in the 80s against organized crime in the New York families, which are, you can't recognize them today as the kind of power that they had in the 80s and the 90s. This is another change in the conditions by which they can operate, and they can't do it freely anymore. And so it's a good thing.
You know, Mike, it's not just fentanyl and other like heroin. People think heroin, cocaine, that's wreaking havoc on our nation and killing young people and poisoning them and ruining lives. There's now a $200 million Senate bill aimed at stopping the influx of vapes, and it's tied to the Chinese Communist Party. Talk to me about the point of these drugs, because a lot of people think, oh, it's just they're kind of making money, they're getting high. It seems like their main goal is to kill, because somebody takes a pill, they think it's Adderall, and they're dead. And, kids can't experiment anymore, which they shouldn't, obviously, to begin with.
And also, and the problem is kids think they're bulletproof, right? And that's always been the issue. So they're at a party, they go into, some neighbor's medicine cabinet and just experiment. And so you again, as Ron was saying, I'm a big believer in we've got to hit the communities and the education system. We've got to work on that demand issue, but also, yes, this problem extends. It's not, everything's interconnected in this world nowadays, right? The globe's been shrinking in part because of trade, in part because of technology. And, China just now has said, oh yeah, we're going to clamp down on fentanyl precursors, right? They told that after Kash Patel, the FBI director, was just in Beijing. You know what? I'm not buying it. They've made all sorts of promises in the past, and they haven't really followed through, in part because it's really, from their perspective, the regime there in Beijing, it's not in their personal self-interest. So hey, great. We had that meeting, and Kash Patel walked away with a promise, but I think we need to be very pragmatic here about what that means. And we have to continue this effort. But I think also part of the problem is going to be there, as you can see the pushback from the international community. You see the pushback from the Democrats on the White House and their actions in the Caribbean and the Eastern and Western Pacific. But they shouldn't be deterred, because this is a problem that needs to finally be dealt with.
Real quick, before I let you both go, what do you think? What kind of decision does Trump make? Does he go into Venezuela or not? There's talk about that he wants a regime change. I'm out of time, but I just want to get your quick thoughts on it, Ron. What do you think? Does he do it or not?
Well, it's conditions based, right? It's going to be a situation where if it makes sense, they should do it. But you're going to have allies inside of that country. We're going to have to do it along with the free people of Venezuela, and I think that's possible.
What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, it's an illegitimate government. I think that probably our best chance is for the close advisors around him, possibly senior military, to finally turn on Maduro. They've got a legitimate government waiting in the wings that Maduro stole the government control from. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen. I would also not be surprised to see some land-based targeting on the narco trafficking networks.
Mike Baker, Ron Vitiello, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Well, deflecting Dems at it again, this time with the Epstein hoax. Democrats are doing everything they can to deflect from the disaster they caused after prolonging the longest government shutdown in history. We'll discuss their latest move and what the government should be investigating instead when Frontline returns.
Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country.
Before Charlie Kirk died, he issued a stark warning of terrifying dangers ahead in a new book, Pagan Threat, authored by Pastor Lucas Miles. Charlie said Pagan Threat could save America and that you must read it. Get Pagan Threat free with Newsmax's special offer. Plus, get Dick Morse's new book, The Real Charlie Kirk. 2 great books with our free offer today.
From our orchards in Oregon to your holiday table, Harry and David delivers a legacy of gourmet excellence. Our prepared meals, fine wines, charcuterie, all crafted to elevate any celebration. Make it a hand-picked holiday with Harry and David.
Invest in Ukraine now. Ukraine is rebuilding, innovating, and shaping the future. Because Ukraine is the potential. Kyivstar is Ukraine's leading digital operator. Invests in Ukraine's connectivity, entertainment, ride-hailing, healthcare, and innovation. It's time to think opportunity. It's time to think Ukraine now.
Healthy aging support starts here with the innovative nitric oxide science pioneered by Human, supporting your body from the heart out through circulation, blood flow, blood pressure, and energy. Results you can feel, science you can trust. Get started today at livehuman.com.
This is the story of the one who knows well-prepared workdays take off smoothly and land right on time. That's why he counts on Grainger. With next-day delivery and professional-grade products, Grainger helps ensure he, his crew, and thousands of passengers fly through the day like clockwork. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Another day, another Democrat hoax. President Trump once again calling out the fake news for the latest Democrat deflection campaign. Trump posting on Truth Social today. Now that the Democrats are using the Epstein hoax involving Democrats, not Republicans, to try and deflect from their disastrous shutdown and all of their other failures. I will be asking AG Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice, together with our great patriots at the FBI, to investigate Jeffrey Epstein's involvement and relationship with Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, J.P. Morgan, Chase, and many other people and institutions to determine what was going on with them. He continued, this is another Russia scam with all arrows pointing to the Democrats. Records show that these men and many others spent large portions of their life with Epstein and on his island. Stay tuned with 3 exclamation points. Well, TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, was on full display today in D.C. after a 12-foot tall statue of President Trump and Jeffrey Epstein holding hands reappeared overnight once again there. It's funny, you know, today, as I was doing some research, even ChatGPT was telling me that the biggest story of the day is Epstein, when the real story is the disastrous Democrat Party that weaponized putting food on the table for political gain. Hey, fake news. How about you cover the real story that's actually affecting Americans? The fact that the majority of the 42 million people that were getting SNAP benefits, aka food stamps, are illegals, and that apparently dead people are eating too? Joining us now, CEO for the government division at LexisNexis Risk Solutions, an organization that provides fraud solutions and analyzes government data, Haywood Talcove. Haywood, thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Looking forward to this.
So, Haywood, let's talk about this latest report that bickering lawmakers in D.C., that they raked in over $20,000 each at the expense of American taxpayers during the shutdown. Meantime, we know that food stamps aid was slashed, travel chaos unleashed, and more than 1 million federal workers went without pay. They didn't want to pay our military, you name it, yet they were making money off of it. Talk to me about so much, all the fraud and waste that you are suspecting is in this SNAP food program.
So I have been talking about this issue for 5 years now. The EBT program, the SNAP program, is a buffet for criminals and fraudsters, not just in the U.S., but all across the world. $120 billion is spent. $18 billion is stolen each year by these criminal groups that take advantage of the fact that they don't do identity verification. They allow for self-reported information. They don't check to make sure that people are continually eligible. So the people that get hurt the most are the ones that are in need, while these individuals that don't live in this country, that are stealing from government, are taking advantage of taxpayers.
You know, a lot of people, I didn't even know that there were 42 million people until the shutdown happened. And now Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins, she's already finding massive fraud. She was on with Rob Schmidt. Here's what she said.
5,000 dead people. That was just 1 month. The number is closer to 186,000 deceased men and women and children in this country are receiving a check. Now, that is what we're really going to start clamping down on. 500,000 are getting 2. But here's the really stunning thing. This is just data from those 29 mostly red states. Can you imagine when we get our hands on the blue state data?
Wow, so it could even be worse. That was, you know, she went on to say that the Trump administration will have everyone reapply for their SNAP benefits. Haywood, are you surprised about what the secretary just said right there?
So, first of all, Secretary Rollins deserves to be the fraud fighter of the year. And the numbers that she put out, she should multiply by 2, right? The fact is that during the Biden administration, they suspended the program that checked for dual participation because the previous deputy administrator said that there wasn't any fraud in the program. And we were watching it firsthand. People getting benefits, not just in 6 states, but in 50 states, and nobody was checking. That program needs to be built from the bottom up. She's absolutely right, the secretary, that every single individual needs to reapply. They need to take out the glorified hotel room key that is the EBT card and put a chip on it. They need to start spending some money because they're only spending 0.1% on program integrity. I sent a picture to your producer of an EBT store in Los Angeles that lacked food and was doing over $1.5 million a month in card trafficking. The program has limited controls. The criminals know it. They sell the quote-unquote sauce on Instagram every single day. And the American taxpayers are paying for a program that is literally a buffet for transnational criminals.
Unbelievable. While they have their fake Gucci purses and the latest iPhone, and they're claiming they're hungry and they're making thousands of dollars. Haywood Talcove, thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Coming up, a report finding that young women don't want to live in the United States anymore. Okay, ladies, well, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. All that and much more in our Culture Clash next.
Hi, I'm Charlotte McBride. I love working at Newsmax because every day we bring you honest reporting with real conversations, no spin. We're not telling you how to think. We're just giving you the facts and letting you decide what's best for you and your family.
A peace plan for Gaza. For the plan to advance, Hamas must disarm. Instead,
tonight, terrifying images emerging from Gaza. Videos show Hamas-linked gunmen carrying out a public execution as they return to the streets.
Hamas on a rampage, executing Palestinians, bloody crackdown, spreading terror. For freedom, not terror, Hamas must go.
This is keratin debris, where nail fungus grows. Nonix nail gel cleans out fungus by removing keratin debris. Using Nonix, 90% of nails improve. Get clinically proven results. So effective, it's money-back guaranteed.
Do you have a yo-yo smile? Sometimes yellow, sometimes white. It's a constant battle between everyday stains and whitening treatments. Until now, get Smile Actives, the daily teeth whitening breakthrough that gives you a more youthful smile and helps you keep it.
At 43 years old, I don't mess around with products that waste my time. Smile Actives is easy, and it works. No gloopy trays, no messy strips. Just add a little bit on top of your toothpaste when you brush your teeth. And ta-da, white teeth.
Just add Smile Actives to your favorite toothpaste and watch the magic happen. Our patented Polyclean microfoam lifts away deep stains for a dramatically younger and whiter smile.
You have a choice. You can have those yellow teeth and just be old Nana or Pop-Pop, or you can be smiling and dazzling and full of confidence. I love my white teeth.
Scan, click, or call for your whitest smile yet. And if you order right now, we'll double your whitening free. Get an extra Smile Actives as our free gift to you, but only while supplies last.
I drink coffee
me every day. I started noticing that my teeth were not as bright as I'd like them to be, a little dingy, but Smile Active, it works. Got your boy gleaming.
100% of users saw whiter teeth. Smile Actives lifts away even the toughest stains from coffee, wine, and food, gently restoring your bright, youthful smile. Plus, it's safe for veneers, crowns, and dentures.
It's really a no-brainer if you want to whiten your teeth.
Clinically shown to brighten your teeth 5 shades whiter in just 7 days.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Act now. Get Smile Actives for just $24.95 and we'll double your order. Free. But hurry, this deal won't last. Smile Actives is guaranteed to work. Whiten your teeth or get your money back. No questions asked. Don't wait. Get Smile Actives for just $24.95 and we'll send you a second bottle absolutely free. That's free shipping. A free extra bottle. That's an incredible 58% savings. Scan the code, go to smileactives.com or call to get your beautiful whiter smile now.
Hi, I'm Bob Webster. You know, in cold weather, I'll bet you every farmer, rancher, and homeowner in the country worries about their pipes freezing and breaking. Well, the Freeze Miser ends that worry. No batteries, no wires, just some amazing technology that lets it sense when the temperature of the water in the pipes drops to 37 degrees. Then it starts releasing exactly the right amount of water. Check it out at freezemiser.com or at your favorite nursery, garden center, hardware, or farm and ranch store. It's the Freeze Miser, and it works.
If you don't want to live in this country, if you don't love this country, I will personally organize a GoFundMe for you and your loved ones so you can get a one-way ticket to Gaza, China, Venezuela, your pick. Because a recent Gallup survey finding that in 2025, 40% of women ages 15 to 44 would leave America permanently if they had the chance. And more than doubles men at 19% for the same age group, which happens to be the biggest gender gap that the Gallup poll has ever recorded for this trend. Liberal women voting under the guise of equity and empathy. It is now the greatest threat facing our great republic. Joining me now, Republican strategist Cliff Maloney. Also with us, Daily Caller columnist and analysis writer Mary Rooke. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. So Mary, clearly that doesn't include me and you because we're normal, we're sane. But the majority of these young women, interesting, they also grew up rich. Now, ain't that rich?
I know, it's really hilarious. I actually think this would make Cliff's job a lot easier if these women would, import themselves over to someone else's country, because we wouldn't have to worry about them voting for the momdamis of the world or going after these progressive Democrats. We saw this huge, gender divide during the last election. It makes me sad for my counterparts. I write a lot about women's issues, specifically motherhood, because I have 4 children. And I was talking about this today, how many girl bosses I actually have in my email that will send me a little note saying that they love to hear these stories about me talking about my children. And I think that it's because deep down they understand what they're missing and they don't have it. And it makes them really upset and sad about it. Mm-hmm. And so they get to have that little, moment of natural traditionalism, I guess you would say. But it's sad. And, it makes me sad for the men in our country because who are they going to pair up with if these are the crazies that they have?
Right. I think a lot of these women, they bought into the big lie, that they don't need, that women don't need men and that children are a burden and put your career first before everything. And then they lose their job or something and they lose their minds. And then, of course, they want to blame President Trump for everything. I also blame our education system. It's failing our young people, Cliff, hence the stupid choices that they make. They're very ignorant. University of California in San Diego admitting that they have students who can't solve first grade math problems. 25% of their admitted students can't solve these problems. And almost 100% of them can't solve 8th grade math problems. This is pathetic. My daughter is in the 3rd grade. And these are our voters. This is who's shaping our future.
Yeah, and look, I just want to say this and make it very clear. Government schooling is failing, right? We have to admit that. We have to come to terms with that in the United States. And of course it's failing. When you're focused more on privilege points than you are on teaching people multiplication tables, obviously you're going to have these problems. So all of these reports, look, I'm a former middle school math teacher. When I see these reports, none of this surprises me. Because when you spend all of your time trying to force this woke DEI and trying to pit people against each other based on the color of their skin, can't we get back to just teaching kids Can't we get back to focusing on the fundamentals? That's what schooling's supposed to be. We need major reforms here in the United States.
Yeah, and how about a class on taxes? How about a class on investing in Wall Street and finance? I mean, these kids don't know how to write a check. I mean, it's really pathetic what is happening in our school system, and it's failing our kids. Speaking of people that need to get re-educated, Zohran Mamdani, who is our next mayor here in New York City, he's also an AOC, who's like his work girlfriend. Their BFF, left-wing podcaster Hassan Piker, you know, the guy that said that we deserve 9/11. Yeah, he says now that he loves China. He loves the Chinese Communist Party. Take a listen.
In my conscience, I have already become Chinese. You have 1950s Soviet-era building blocks next to the Gucci store. If there was ever a country that represented the synthesis, the things that I enjoy so much personally, you have met me at a very Chinese time in my life, Chad.
You know, he has millions of followers, and yes, he is close with Mamdani. He is close with AOC. They were hanging out at the victory party for Mamdani. I mean, does Hassan not realize that if he lived in China and criticized the government there the way he does this one, he'd be in a prison camp mining for earth minerals? What do you think about this, Mary?
Obviously, it's ridiculous. And I think the thing that is so sad about the people that listen to him is the fact that he's not willing to give an honest retelling of what the Communist Party in China has actually done to the people of China. We're talking about, you know, some estimates 80 million, some 65 million people died under that, you know, Mao Zedong. And I sit back and I think to myself, we've never actually told the story correctly in the United States. We talk about the education system, how it's failing our children. But when we see this large swath of our youth going towards the Chinese Communist Party and being sympathetic to them, especially people like Hassan pushing that narrative on a daily basis, you wonder to yourself, how long is it going to be really until it's not just New York City that's taken over by this type of ideology, but, you know, entire states and entire groups of people. And it's really terrifying, especially whenever you actually are a lover of history and you've looked back and you've seen the destruction that not only communism has done, but socialism has done, and all these other deaths that have come across from these hideous ideologies. Then you have someone going, oh, I'm inherently Chinese. And like you said, it's like, okay, Hassan, then say one bad thing about China while you're there. Because, you know, you have Christians in China that can't even profess their faith unless they're going to be taken down into some basement somewhere and forced to like go through some sort of retraining. Let's talk about the Muslim Uyghur camps that are held out as slave labor, you know, over there in the rural China. It's disgusting.
It really is. And speaking of disgusting, MSNBC, will now be rebranded as MS Now, Ms. Now. It starts tomorrow. Cliff, I know you are eager and excited to watch this, as am I, because it's great fodder for us to make fun of, and it's great material to have on this program. What do you think about this network, whose clearly its main goal is to upset women? I think that's all they do, and Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talked a little while ago about why women are trying to get out of America or want to leave. They've been brainwashed, right? And you have networks like this that want to teach people that they're victims. They don't want to teach people to be empowered, to be a victor. They want to play the blame game, and this is just the Democrat garbage. They can rebrand however they want, but at the end of the day, if your message is still men are horrible, white people are the enemy, and Trump is Hitler, your audience is not going to be a group of people that are patriotic Americans that want to put America first. So I wish them the best of luck. But I will not be tuning in.
Cliff and Mary. I don't think Mary will be watching either. Cliff and Mary. And Mary, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thanks, Lydia.
Thanks.
Well, Islam, it is now the fastest growing religion in the United States. Could Sharia law be coming to a town near you? I don't mean to scare you, but one governor is trying to stop it as Islamic leaders take a foothold in our cities. That's next.
One of the greatest abuses of power ever. The FBI raided former President Trump's home. 30 agents, guns drawn, even rifles. Watch FBI, Abuse of Power, on Newsmax TV.
Posture matters, and Tommy Copper has the bra for you. relieve neck and shoulder pain, improve your posture. Look and feel your best every day with back support built right into your bra. The best-selling shoulder support bra from Tommy Copper is the upgrade you need. Comfortable, supportive, designed to help you carry confident posture when it matters most.
Why would I wear any other bra?
Go to TommyCopper.com and save 50%. Upgrade your bra today.
Introducing Avocado's body-hugging, certified organic luxury mattress. Plush and decadent, made with 17 luxurious supportive layers, including organic cotton, wool, and latex, natural silk and alpaca fibers, and individually pocketed motion-isolating coils for total body support. For sleepers who want the best in natural luxury, add an adjustable base to effortlessly customize your sleep positions. Shop today with Avocado Green, proud supporter of 1% for the planet.
Are you or a loved one a military veteran that has been diagnosed with mesothelioma? Do you have questions about getting the best treatment or paying medical bills? Have you received the proper care and compensation you deserve? Let our firm serve you with the same dedication you served your country. We are exclusively devoted to helping those with mesothelioma. Call now to get this free book, and we'll answer any question you have. We'll even visit you.
Call 800-555-8958 or go to mesobook.com.
At Viasat, we believe every family deserves connection. Internet plans starting at just $39.99. Available anywhere you call home. Visit Viasat.com/offer or call 8779-VIASAT to sign up today.
AI company Palantir makes critical decisions for governments around the world. In 2019, Palantir bought $50 million in gold in case of black swan events. Not surprising what followed. In 2020, a pandemic shut down the global economy. And in 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. In 2023, we had a regional banking collapse. And in 2025, could a 1929 market crash be the final straw? Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 8 years in a row, home of the no-fee-for-life IRA. Patriot Gold Group is patriots protecting patriots. Call now, 888-528-4290.
Meet Andrew from the Zebra. Andrew lives and breathes insurance. Andrew stays up all night watching the Zebra find people's savings. You might think nobody could love insurance as much as Andrew, but at the Zebra, everybody's really into savings. The Zebra monitors your insurance and informs you of savings the moment we find it, so you never have to second-guess your policy or your price. Nobody does insurance like the Zebra. Find out how much you can save today.
The people who call themselves Muslims should not be selling haram in their stores. The pork, alcohol, and the gambling, it needs to stop. And it's amazing they only choose the poor black neighborhoods to peddle their haram in.
What began as quiet guidance is now igniting a fierce public debate. That imam right there from a prominent Houston, Texas mosque, urging a shift towards strict Sharia-style practices, encouraging Muslim-owned stores to pull alcohol, pork, and other forbidden goods from their shelves or face boycotts and protests. With the threat of Sharia law looming, Texas Governor Greg Abbott has even signed a law banning Sharia compounds in the state. Abbott claims residential property developments such as Epic City tried to use religion as a form of segregation. Epic City would have only been open to Muslims, and its residents would have been subject, he says, to Sharia law, and landowners would be restricted from selling property. Yes, this happening in the United States. Our next guest is warning Americans to be careful about the Islamic influence rising in our nation. Joining me now, Christian apologetics expert Alex McFarland. Alex, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for covering this very important subject.
You know, in London, it's already happening, where there is public housing only for Muslims. They have a Muslim mayor. Is this where the United States is headed?
Well, it could be, and in fact, likely is, unless Americans have the courage and the presence of mind to speak out vocally, be on record, to stand against the imposition of Sharia law and Islam and defend our Constitution.
And let me say, since 9/11, I've been on endless numbers of media shows trying to warn people about the encroachment of Islam, Sharia, and jihadism in America. And people will often say, well, you're Islamophobic or you're bigoted or something like that. We're not afraid of, we fear God and God only. And I'm not a bigot because Islam is not an ethnicity. It's a worldview. But I have to say, irrespective of any spiritual issues, we should care about the preservation of our U.S. Constitution. And the Center for Constitutional Studies recently published a paper on how Islam is incompatible with our Judeo-Christian representative constitutional republic. So this is a tangible, legitimate threat to the preservation of America, and it must be called out and stopped.
Right, Charlie Kirk talked about it all the time. And, you know, worries about Sharia law extending far beyond Texas, Dearborn, Michigan, you know, it was known for Motor City, and now this is their new norm. Can we play that? Let's. You hear that? That is the Muslim call to prayer, blasting in the streets 5 times a day. And like you, listen, I'm all for religious freedoms. That's what this is what this country was founded upon. But like you said, the Sharia, the strict Muslim way of life, that is incompatible with American principles. It's incompatible.
It absolutely is. And look, anybody can believe what they want to believe. On a personal level, if someone wants to believe in the tenets of Islam, that is their prerogative, of course. But what we can't do, we must not do, is allow these groups like CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. Since 2014, United Arab Emirates has called them a terrorist group. And by the way, in June of this year, there's H.R. 4097 is a bill that would finally acknowledge the truth that CARE is a terrorist organization. But here's something. I had a friend named Nabil Qureshi. He was a Christian, a medical doctor who left Islam to become a Christian. He was in Dearborn, Michigan in 2010, and an Arabic person on public property asked him about Christianity. And Nabil, he was a friend and a colleague, he was arrested by the Islamic Dearborn police chief for talking to a Muslim about his personal Christian faith. And he was later acquitted, but he spent 3 days in jail. And here's my point, is the founders recognized it. Jefferson recognized, John Quincy Adams recognized, even Jimmy Carter, who certainly was no right-wing firebrand. In the book by Harvard professor Samuel Huntington, The Clash of Civilizations, even Jimmy Carter recognized that Islam does not assimilate. Now, again, I want to be clear. Anybody that wants to be a Muslim, they can be a Muslim.
Absolutely.
But we cannot let, because this is a treasonous threat to our U.S. Constitution, we cannot let Islamic centers, terror cells that are proliferating, these mosques, these schools that will reach a tipping point, jeopardizing the preservation of the U.S. Constitution. We cannot let this continue to grow.
Right, and CARE, as you just said, it's labeled a terrorist organization by some, and yet it was funding the next mayor of New York City, as well as other candidates. It's incredible. Alex McFarland, thank you so much for joining us. And
thank you.
Informing the American people. Thank you. All right, coming up, Fani Willis and her boy toy, they're out. But who is now in on the election interference case against Trump? Yeah, remember that case? I thought it was dead too. We'll discuss that and more next.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about YRefi. Did you know that as an accredited investor, when you invest in YRefi, your interest rate is fixed? And did you know that you can invest from 1 to 5 years and you can spread your investment over those terms to best suit your needs? And you have the freedom to take your monthly interest income or reinvest it, whatever you choose. When you invest in YRefi, your interest is calculated daily, you're paid monthly, and should you need your money back early, there is a liquidity feature. Would you like more information? All you have to do is call 877-80-INVEST. That's 877-80-INVEST, or log on to investyrrefi.com. That's investyrrefi.com for complete details. And make sure you review the private placement memorandum and scan this QR code to view the disclosure at your leisure. Why refi? Investing in America's future.
Consumer Cellular knows there are a lot of offers flying around, but they slip away too fast. We don't play games. What you see is what you get. Bet you're glad you wore cargo pants. See how we can cut your bill. Call Consumer Cellular.
Everyone loves to find surprising presents under the tree.
Love him.
And WeatherTech gifts are always special too. Vehicles are protected with laser measured floor liners for the front and middle, plus a cargo liner for the rear, and seat protector for furry messes. And with the pet feeding system, he'll eat safely his entire life. Add a cup phone to make sure the phone is secure while driving. Find these American-made gifts or get a gift card instantly at WT.com.
Hi, I'm Ben Cozy. Isn't traveling a pain in the neck? You're cramped, uncomfortable, and forget about getting any rest. There's nothing cozy about airplane seats or hard plastic benches, and those so-called travel pillows, they just don't cut it. You don't need another travel pillow. You need Be Cozy, the world's most comfortable neck pillow. Trapped in the middle seat? Wrap Be Cozy around your neck to stop chin drop, bobblehead napping. Smashed up against the window? Fold Be Cozy over and tuck it onto your shoulder for super side support. Frequent flyer miles got you sitting aisle? Turn Be Cozy to the side for the perfect pillow position. Everyone wants to be cozy, so get the world's most comfortable travel neck pillow and be cozy just like me, Ben Cozy. You get to be cozy. Everyone gets a Be Cozy. Only Be Cozy has patented overlapping arms so you get double support and the comfort you need in any seat on any trip. Go online right now and get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Be Cozy, get one 50% off. Get yours now.
Afraid your roof won't make it through the winter? Roofmax can tune up and restore your roof for a fraction of the cost of a replacement. Call now, and the tune-up portion is free with your Roofmax treatment.
Do you remember the 2020 election fraud case in Georgia against President Trump? Well, the prosecuting attorney's Council of Georgia Executive Director Peter Skandalakis was forced to take over. He appointed himself because no other advocate was willing to sign on to the case after Fani Willis and her boyfriend were exposed as frauds. Skandalakis was previously involved in the case and decided not to bring charges against Trump. This self-appointment comes hours before the case would be dismissed outright. Just really bizarre. And we can't forget the bizarre press tour that went on from the jury foreperson involved in the case. Watch this.
Nothing that would surprise people who have been following this.
Probably not. I wouldn't want to characterize anyone else's reaction, of course, but so that was when we heard a lot in testimony.
Yeah, she's okay. All right, joining us now, TW Shannon, host of Wake Up America Weekend. Also with us, Sarah Selip. She is the founder and president of 917 Strategies. TW, I thought this case was dead and gone already. 5 years later, what do you think about them appointing this guy? And what do you think about this case?
Yeah, I mean,
Trump?
you know, here's the thing, right? Donald Trump has won, and he continues to win, particularly on these issues. We saw unbelievable lawfare launched against the president of the United States, and even with that against him, the American people rose up and they elected Donald Trump president of the United States. I think partly because of this very case, because of this type of lawfare they saw against the president. And so now that is completely crumbling, falling apart. You got Fani Willis out there who can't seem to win anywhere, who has zero credibility about any issue at all, because frankly, she was having some kind of relationship with the guy that she was paying with the taxpayer. I mean, this thing is all over the case. It's like some bad episode of a reality television show, Lydia. And I just can't believe that we're still here, still talking about it. But again, it just shows you President Trump was right about everything.
Yeah, real quick, I'm throwing you a curveball. We didn't have this as a list of topics, but I know you can handle it. You're a host here now. So the Epstein hoax. I keep telling people it is a hoax. It's a deflection. It's a distraction, because if it were true, Joe Biden would have released him. Yeah. They tried to prosecute him. Somebody tried to kill the guy. Do you think if they had a direct link of him with Jeffrey Epstein, they would have hid that silver bullet? Yeah, Joe Biden would have used it. Are you kidding me? Kamala Harris.
Totally. And let's be clear here, right? The idea of the charges that were levied against, against Epstein and the accusations against him, those are horrible. And that's real. And the people suffered, obviously. What is a hoax is trying to somehow tie Donald Trump to that scandal. That is a complete hoax. That's not working, and it's to distract from the fact that the Democrats have no plan. They have no plan moving into the midterm other than hating Trump, and that didn't work last time. It's not going to work this time. So they're trying to create this really hoax of a story to tie Donald Trump to Epstein, and there's just no evidence there at all that there's any connection whatsoever. But they keep trying, but again, the guy just keeps winning against them. So we'll see how successful they are in the midterms, but I think this is going to backfire like so everything else has against them.
I know, it really is incredible. It's the media also working in concert, I think, with the Democrat Party. Jen Psaki, she was trying to backtrack on this one. Take a look at this.
In supporting what Donald Trump is doing.
You're talking about the other predators out there, in addition to Trump. I mean, I'm not saying he is. We don't know all the details about that. I just mean in addition to what we've learned about Epstein and others, there's other predators out there.
So, Sarah, I know you're probably distracted by the weird outfit that that Psaki was wearing there. I wish my boss would see this. Look at this outfit, the turtleneck. She's trying, or maybe she's trying to copy UTW, but with the, what is that, like a tuxedo look with like the mock turtleneck? It's like she's trying to be more unattractive. Sarah, what do you think about what Jen Psaki was saying there? She's being careful with her words because they don't want to get sued like the BBC, who could be facing a $1 billion lawsuit for what they did.
I mean, just based off of the BBC, we would have had the answer by 5 p.m. today already, just based off of how the Trump campaign was putting it out there. But that being said, MSDNC now, with their terrible mock necks and weird blazers, like, of course they're going to try and do these, like, petty partisan power plays using the word predator. It's better than Nazi or fascist, but still, like, anything they can do to call Trump a nickname that disqualifies him from being a solid leader, they will do anything possible, even these cheap little shots that make zero sense. I mean, even Ruben Gallego was sitting there like, this is a lot.
Yeah, exactly. You know, this should be funny to watch. Jasmine Crockett is saying that she is definitely thinking about running for Senate. Take a look at this.
I am absolutely thinking about running for Senate, and I'm hoping to have an answer within my inner circle, probably within the next week and a half or so. I'm polling to determine whether or not I can expand the electorate, and I believe that I can, but if I can't, I can tell you for sure, 100%, that I will not run.
So I'm distracted again by the hairdo, because do you guys look? Do you know K-pop?
Yeah,
So
sure,
my daughter is really into this K-pop.
So is mine, yeah.
And like the hair, it's like a velociraptor mixed in with like I don't even know. 30 seconds to you, TW. I'm not making. I just don't. Like a woman that puts that on top of her head. How do you take her seriously?
Every time I see Jasmine Crockett, I'm reminded of something my grandmother used to say: more nerve than a rotten tooth. I mean, this lady has no shame whatsoever, and the fact that she thinks she could be United States Senator is almost laughable. I mean, that everybody remembers her from her, you know, her incident with Marjorie Taylor Greene there at a House committee hearing where she went full real housewives of Congress on us. I mean, this lady, I think, has the potential to be a real serious legislator, but she misses it at every turn because she's more interested in TV than actually legislating.
10 seconds to you, Sarah. Is she high on her eyelash glue? What do you think?
Maybe so am I, but if she wants to expand the electorate, maybe they should look at her ego first.
All right, Sarah and TW, thank you guys.
Thanks, Lydia.
All right, before we go, according to liberal media, Trump's the big bad orange boogeyman, but what they hide of him actually shines a light on the person he truly is. That's next.
You know, everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us, we're different. We report the real news, no spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
Invest in Ukraine now. Ukraine is rebuilding, innovating, and shaping the future. Because Ukraine is the potential. Kyivstar is Ukraine's leading digital operator. Invests in Ukraine's connectivity, entertainment, ride-hailing, healthcare, and innovation. It's time to think opportunity. It's time to think Ukraine now.
A lot of accidents happen up on ladders, especially this time of the year, trying to clean out clogged gutters. You don't want to be next. That's why homeowners choose Leaf Guard, the only seamless one-piece leaf shedding and rainwater management system with a clog-free guarantee. Remember, Leaf Guard's attached to the fascia using our patented hanger system with screws, not nails. We guarantee it's not coming down. And if you call during this program, you can take advantage of our double savings sale. We're going to double your savings to 20% off a complete Leaf Guard system. Double your bonus to a $200 Visa gift card with purchase, and double your free gift. Receive a $100 gift card with your in-home estimate. And the first 50 homeowners who call will receive a vacation voucher with Leaf Guard purchase. Call 1-800-541-1274. That's 1-800-541-1274.
Yeah, with Leaf Guard, I haven't had any clogs at all. And I used to a lot. So I'm looking forward to many more years with my Leaf Guard system.
And with Leaf Guard's exclusive Big Mouth, the extra large opening and oversized downspouts can handle up to 32 inches of rainfall an hour. And Leaf Guard has a lifetime transferable warranty. Remember, we can bring our factory-owned wheels right to your house and in most cases install Leaf Guard in less than a day. Call now during this program and take advantage of our double savings sale. Double your savings to 20% off a complete Leaf Guard system. Double your bonus to a $200 Visa gift card with purchase, and double your free gift. Receive a $100 gift card with estimate. And the first 50 homeowners who call will receive a vacation voucher with Leaf Guard purchase. Leaf Guard, get it today, protect it for life. Call 1-800-541-1274. That's 1-800-541-1274.
I'm a martial artist, a skydiver, a pilot, and all of them require your feet to work. Get up in the morning and it felt like I was standing on marbles on my heel. When I went into the Good Feet store, the fitting was personalized. It was all about me. You put in the arch supports and your day becomes better and the sun shines, the unicorns run by, and you know, it's a good life. I'm Randy and that's my Good Feet story.
See for yourself with a free personalized arch support fitting at the Good Feet store.
Larry was in a really bad accident and broke his neck in the line of duty.
I get a phone call early one morning from the Tunnel Towers Foundation. Said, we're going to provide you and your family with a smart home. At that time, I just almost just passed out. I just couldn't believe it.
They heard his story, which means someone's out there listening.
By giving $11 a month, you're joining us on our mission to do good. Go to T2T.org now.
When it comes to the fake news, it's what they lie about, and it's also what they don't show you to create a narrative, always portraying Trump as a big, bad, orange boogeyman instead of the funny, caring, and compassionate guy many close to him say he is. Like when he went out of his way to call Sharon Osbourne and gave her his best after her husband Ozzy passed away. Watch this.
Hi, Sharon. It's Donald Trump, and I just wanted to wish you the best and the family. You have great food. Ozzy was amazing. He was an amazing guy. I met him a few times, and I want to tell you, he was unique in every way and talented. So I just wanted to wish you the best, and it's a tough thing. I know how close you were, and whatever I can do, take care of yourself. Say hello to the family. Thanks.
A busy guy who takes the time out to give his condolences, not just with Ozzy, but numerous times. And the fake news also won't show you how great he is with kids.
Yes, for you. We must know what your name is. My name is Donald.
So cute. So my 8-year-old daughter, Julia, said to me last night, Trump is the greatest president ever, right, Mom? And I said, yeah, see, even a kid knows the truth. And that'll do it for this edition of Frontline. Carl will be back on Monday. I'm Lidia Curanaj. Trust and remember that God is with you in all ways. Always. So, Rob, you know the president. You've golfed with him.
Yeah.
Does the media ever show that funny, compassionate side of him?
They try to avoid it as much as possible. And it's funny, we do memos on the streets. We met a woman one time on a bench. We were talking to her, and she tells us this whole story about how she was down and out, and Trump walked up and gave her $100 and said, take care of yourself. It was something else. And her name was Debbie. I just got that in my ear. Remember Debbie? Stories like that, you never hear those stories.
You don't.
Yeah.
All right.
Good to see you, Lydia. Thanks so much.